Ladies and gentlemen, there is a weariness in you, a tiredness that words cannot mend. It is the exhaustion of a soul that has spent too long justifying its goodness to those who feast on its light. There are forces in this world that do not seek to understand but to unravel. They disguise themselves in reason, in politeness, in the guise of honest inquiry, but they do not ask questions to learn. They listen not to understand but to twist. You have met them before. They are the ones who demand explanations for your convictions, not because they lack answers, but because they wish to drain you dry. You have stood before them pleading your case, convinced that if you could only find the right words they would see your heart. But they will not see, because they do not wish to. There are men and women, empty of truth but full of cunning, who will poke and prod at your soul, testing its edges like a wolf gnawing at the fence that keeps it from its prey. These are not people seeking wisdom. They are forces seeking weakness, and yet, you explain, again and again you pour yourself out, believing lightly, wrongly, that light alone can teach the blind to see. But I tell you, stop. Stop explaining yourself to demons in people. A heart that does not hunger for truth cannot be fed by it. A mind that delights in confusion will not be won over by clarity. You owe nothing, no defense, no justification to those who have already decided to misunderstand you. Do not be deceived. It is not your explanations they crave, but your exhaustion. Every moment spent answering the dishonest is a moment stolen from the worthy. There are souls, good, hungry, searching souls, who long for the wisdom you waste on the wicked. Speak when words will bear fruit, but do not cast your pearls before swine. When you recognize the glint of malice behind the mask of curiosity, be silent, walk away. Let them gnash their teeth in the absence of your energy. For the darkness cannot survive without something to devour, and without your explanations, without your justifications, without your struggle, they have nothing left to feed on. There is a false belief that has taken root in many hearts, the idea that we owe an explanation to everyone who demands it, that if someone challenges us, questions us, or even attacks us, we must pause and justify ourselves, as if our very existence is a debate open for discussion. But this is a deception. A trick designed to ensnare the well-meaning and exhaust the good-hearted. Not everyone deserves an explanation, and certainly not everyone who demands one is asking in good faith. There are those who approach us with sincere curiosity, who genuinely seek to understand, and for them words are a bridge. An explanation can be a gift, an offering of truth that nourishes the mind and strengthens the bonds between people. But then, there are others, the ones who do not seek truth but control. Their questions are not asked to gain wisdom, but to provoke, to unsettle, to drain. They mask their intentions with politeness or feigned interest, but the purpose is always the same: to make you doubt yourself, to force you to expend energy, proving something that never needed proving. You have likely encountered them before. Perhaps you have stood in front of someone who, with a smirk on their lips, demanded that you explain why you believe what you believe. Not because they lacked the information, but because they wished to watch you squirm under the weight of their scrutiny. Perhaps they dismissed every answer you gave, shifting the conversation, twisting words, moving the goalposts so that, no matter how carefully you explained, it was never enough. They were never listening. They were never open. Their only goal was to keep you talking, to keep you on the defensive, to make you feel small in the face of their endless questioning. Some will disguise their attacks as concern. They will act as though they are only trying to help you. See the other side, only trying to challenge you for your own good. But watch closely. The same people who demand you justify yourself will never hold themselves to the same standard. They do not question their own beliefs. They do not explain themselves to you. They only wish to see how far they can push you before you break. And break you will, if you let them. If you continue to explain yourself to those who do not care to listen, you will find yourself drained, empty, exhausted. Because explanations, when given to the wrong people, are not merely words. They are pieces of your energy, your spirit, your strength. When you speak to a wall, it does not absorb your wisdom. It only leaves you shouting into the void. There is a difference between being open and being defenseless. There is a difference between being kind and being an easy target. You do not owe an answer to every mocker, every manipulator, every bad faith interrogator who crosses your path. Some questions do not deserve answers. Some people do not deserve your time. The moment you recognize this, you will begin to reclaim the energy you have wasted, and with it your power. Evil rarely presents itself as something obvious. It does not always come with snarling teeth and open malice. Instead, it often wears a mask, slipping into conversations with an innocent tilt of the head, a soft-spoken question, a seemingly harmless request for explanation. It does not demand or threaten, at least not at first. It merely inquires, pretending to seek understanding, all the while setting its traps. It appears in the form of curiosity, of interest, of an open mind that is anything but open. This is how it works, not with brute force, but with subtlety, drawing you in before you realize you have walked willingly into its snare. You have met this kind of evil before. You have seen it, in the person who asks, "But why do you believe that?" Not out of a true desire to understand, but out of a desire to dismantle you piece by piece. You have encountered it in the one who insists they are just playing devil's advocate, who frames every discussion as a harmless debate, as if the truth were something to be toyed with rather than something to be pursued. They probe, they challenge, they pretend to be neutral, but their aim is not to learn, it is to undermine. Their goal is to make you doubt what you know to be true, to chip away at your certainty until you are left questioning yourself, drained and unsteady. At first, their curiosity appears reasonable. They ask intelligent questions. They present themselves as fair-minded, willing to engage. But watch how the conversation unfolds. No matter how carefully you explain, no matter how much patience you extend, their curiosity never seems to be satisfied. Every answer you give leads only to more questions, not because they are seeking deeper understanding, but because they are seeking to exhaust you. They twist your words, misinterpret your intentions, and when you finally grow weary, when you refuse to continue the game, they accuse you of being defensive, of being unwilling to engage in honest discussion. But honesty was never their goal. Evil thrives in this kind of disguise because it knows that good-hearted people want to believe in dialogue. It knows that those who stand in truth are willing to explain themselves, to be patient, to extend grace to those who ask. It takes advantage of this, masquerading as curiosity while poisoning the air with doubt and confusion. It hides behind intellectualism, behind a false sense of fairness, pretending to be open-minded while never actually listening. This is why so many fall into its trap. They mistake deception for discussion, assuming that if someone is asking questions, they must be searching for truth. But truth is not what evil seeks. It seeks dominance, it seeks control, it seeks to keep you talking long enough for you to begin unraveling yourself. And if you do not recognize this disguise, you will spend your energy answering questions that were never meant to be answered, explaining yourself to those who never intended to listen. There are none so blind as those who refuse to see. It is not a matter of lacking information or needing better reasoning. It is a choice, a deliberate rejection of truth. No explanation, no matter how carefully crafted, will penetrate a mind that has already decided to remain closed. And yet, so many waste their breath, their energy, and their time trying to reason with those who have long since chosen ignorance over understanding. It is a battle not of intellect, but of will. And when a person has resolved to remain blind, no amount of light will make them see. It is easy to believe that if we just explain ourselves better, if we provide more evidence, if we speak with more patience, we can reach them. There is a hope, a deep desire to believe that people are simply misguided rather than resistant, that they merely lack knowledge rather than reject it outright. But this is rarely the case. Those who are willfully blind do not suffer from a lack of explanation. They have already rejected every explanation before it was even given. They are not searching for truth. They are protecting themselves from it. You have met them before, the ones who ask for proof but dismiss it when it is given, the ones who demand an explanation but find fault with every answer. They shift their stance, they change the argument, they twist words, but because they do not understand, but because they do not want to. The truth threatens them. It unsettles them. It requires something of them. Humility, change, the willingness to admit they were wrong. And rather than face that discomfort, they choose blindness. To argue with such people is to cast yourself into an endless cycle. No matter how much you give, it will never be enough. They do not want understanding, they want control. They want to keep you talking, keep you explaining, keep you on the defensive, because as long as you are justifying yourself, you are not standing firm. They create confusion where there should be clarity, doubt where there should be conviction. They take your words and twist them into knots, then blame you when the meaning is lost. Good people keep trying. They keep believing that with just one more conversation, one more attempt, they will finally get through. But what they fail to see is that the blind do not want to see. The more energy you pour into explaining, the more drained you become, and still they remain unchanged. There is no argument strong enough to force open an unwilling mind, no reasoning sharp enough to cut through self-imposed darkness. Some doors will never open, no matter how many times you knock. Some eyes will never see, no matter how much light is shined upon them. And when a person has chosen blindness, it is not your task to make them see. It is only your task to recognize when your words are falling on deaf ears, and to walk away before you, too, are pulled into the darkness they refuse to leave. Your energy is one of the most valuable things you possess. It fuels your thoughts, your actions, your creativity, and your ability to give to others. It is not infinite. It is not something to be thrown away on every demand that comes your way. And yet far too many people waste it on things that do not deserve it, on arguments that go nowhere, on people who drain rather than uplift, on battles that were never meant to be fought. They spend themselves explaining, defending, and justifying their existence to those who will never be satisfied. And in the end, they find themselves empty, exhausted, and wondering where all their strength has gone. There are people in this world who survive by taking from others. They do not seek knowledge, growth, or understanding. They seek control, attention, and power. They disguise their demands as curiosity, their manipulation as concern, their endless questioning as a search for truth. But what they truly desire is your energy. They thrive on your frustration, your exhaustion, your willingness to give and give until there is nothing left. And the more you try to explain yourself, to prove yourself, to gain their approval, the more they feed off of you. You have felt it before, the heavy drain of an interaction that leaves you depleted, as if something has been pulled out of you. The feeling of walking away from a conversation not with clarity, but with confusion. The sense that no matter how much you said, it was never enough, because the other person was not seeking an answer. They were seeking to wear you down, and every moment you spend engaging with such people is a moment stolen from something better. Your energy was meant for greater things. It was meant to build, to create, to uplift, to strengthen those who truly need it. It was meant for those who are open to growth, who are willing to listen, who will take what you give and turn it into something meaningful. But when you waste your energy on those who do not value it, you rob yourself of the ability to pour into the things that truly matter. You rob yourself of peace, of focus, of purpose. Not every argument deserves your voice. Not every challenge requires a response. Not every person who demands your attention is worthy of it. There is wisdom in knowing when to walk away, when to guard your energy as something precious, rather than throwing it into the void. Because the truth is, no matter how much you give to the wrong people, it will never be enough. And no matter how little you give to the right ones, it will always be meaningful. Your energy is not an endless resource. It is your power, your fuel, the thing that keeps you moving forward. And the moment you recognize its value, you will stop spending it on those who only seek to drain it, and instead, you will invest it in the places where it will truly grow. Instead, you will invest it in the places where it will truly. Silence is often mistaken for weakness. People assume that the one who speaks the loudest, who argues the longest, who fills the air with words, is the one who holds power. But true strength does not always announce itself. There is a weight in silence, a force that unsettles those who seek to control you with noise, with demands, with endless questions designed to pull you into their game. Silence is a choice, and it is one of the most powerful choices you can make. There are people who thrive on your reaction. They do not engage with you in good faith, nor do they seek truth. They poke, they provoke, they challenge. Not to understand, but to exhaust. They want your frustration, your defensiveness, your need to prove yourself. They want you to explain, to argue, to justify, because as long as you are responding, they are in control. The more you engage, the more you hand over your energy, your peace, your focus. But when you choose silence, you deny them what they seek. Silence makes people uncomfortable. It leaves space where they expected a fight, where they hope to pull you in. It forces them to sit with their own words, their own emptiness, their own lack of substance. When you refuse to engage, you do not give them the satisfaction of knowing they have affected you. You do not validate their attempts to shake you. Instead, you remain unmoved, and that is where true power lies. Not in endless explanations, not in battles that drain your spirit, but in the quiet certainty of knowing who you are without needing to prove it. Silence does not mean passivity. It does not mean surrender. It means choosing where to place your energy, recognizing that not every situation deserves a response. There is a time to speak, a time to defend, a time to stand firm in words, but there is also a time to let silence speak for you. There is a time to walk away, to refuse to engage in the games others play, to let your absence say more than your presence ever could. In silence there is strength. It is the refusal to be manipulated, the rejection of chaos, the discipline of holding your ground without being pulled into unnecessary conflict. It is knowing that your worth does not depend on anyone else's understanding, that your truth does not need validation from those who have already decided to misunderstand. It is the quiet confidence of a mind that is not swayed by noise, by provocation, by the endless demands of those who seek only to drain and distract. There is nothing more unsettling to those who seek control than a person who refuses to react. When you stop explaining, stop justifying, stop allowing yourself to be pulled into conversations that serve no purpose, you take back your power. You become untouchable. Because in the end, it is not the loudest voice that holds the most strength, but the one that knows when to remain silent. Darkness does not grow on its own. It is not self-sustaining. It needs something to consume, something to latch onto, something to drain in order to survive. It does not create, it only takes, and its greatest fuel is your struggle. The more you fight against it, the more you explain yourself, the more you resist in ways that exhaust you, the more it thrives. Darkness is not always an obvious force. It does not always arrive as rage or destruction. Sometimes it comes as endless confusion, as self-doubt, as a battle that never seems to end, no matter how much effort you pour into it. That is how it wins. Not by defeating you outright, but by keeping you tangled in a fight that was never meant to be won. There are people, situations, and forces that feed on the energy you give them. The more you engage, the more you try to justify yourself, the stronger they become. They do not need to prove you wrong. They only need to keep you struggling. Every explanation you give, every argument you entertain, every time you feel compelled to prove yourself to those who have no intention of listening, you are feeding the very thing that seeks to drain you. The moment you recognize this, everything changes. The struggle is what darkness wants because it keeps you distracted. As long as you are focused on defending yourself, you are not moving forward. As long as you are caught in the web of trying to prove your worth, your truth, your intentions, you are not using your energy for anything that actually brings life. The battle is designed to keep you tired, questioning, uncertain. It is not a real fight, it is a trap. And the only way to win is to step out of it entirely. The hardest thing to accept is that some fights are not worth fighting. Not because the truth does not matter, but because there are those who will twist it, ignore it, or use it against you, not to find resolution, but to keep you engaged. They will provoke, challenge, and distort, not because they seek answers, but because they seek your exhaustion. The more you struggle, the stronger they become. The moment you stop, they are left with nothing. Light does not argue with darkness. It does not beg it to leave, it simply shines, and darkness has no choice but to retreat. In the same way, when you stop explaining, stop struggling, stop giving your energy to those who only seek to drain you, they lose their power. The weight that once felt unbearable disappears, not because the battle was won, but because you realized it never needed to be fought in the first place. Darkness cannot consume what does not engage with it, and when you step away, when you stop feeding it with your energy, it starves.